Hello, my name is John and welcome to another Product Spotlight. Today we're looking at HO Scale GATX tank train tank cars. These models come from Athearn and they're in their Genesis line, which is their top of the line. They come in 1 packs for $73.99, 2 packs for $137.99, and 3 packs for $173.99. On the website, it mentions that the minimum radius for these models is 18 inches with a recommended radius of 22 inches. There are 3 types of these cars. There are end cars. One's for the front end of the train, the other's for the rear end of the train, and then there are intermediate cars. And you want to pay attention when you're ordering these because they are different. I'm going to go over some of those differences here in just a second. They're packed in these clamshell cases and come with not only warranty information, exploded view drawings, and promotional stuff, but inside each container, there are also little parts bags, which have the hoses that go from car to car and additional bearing end caps. I mentioned the prices of these models. These are MSRP, right? Manufacturer's Suggested Retail Price. Athearn is offering these in a lot of different road names and road numbers. I think your best bet would be to go to the Athearn website, see if they have what you're looking for, and then shop around for the best price because MSRP is not always the best price. So before we look at the finer parts of the details on these models, I want to point out that there are distinctly different cars. Now I have 3 here. And the 2 that are on the ends, those are called end cars. And it tells you on the box or when you order whether you're getting end cars or not. The one in the middle right here is an intermediate car. And you can tell them apart because the end cars have different fittings on the end of the car. So what I'm talking about is this car over here has a fitting that has an additional pipe. And then this end car has just a plug on the end. The intermediate cars have fittings like this. And the hoses that came with the model fit across from each car to each car. So intermediate cars would have the same fittings and they would just run hoses all the way across. So these unit trains would not have to get taken apart unless you have to bad order a car or something like that in real life. So we're going to do a full around the car look at the intermediate car. The main difference, of course, between the intermediate car and the end cars are the fittings I showed you on the ends. This is the unnumbered intermediate car. I mentioned that because Athearn's offering intermediate cars either numbered or unnumbered. And I think the idea there is if you're a real stickler for having different numbers on all of your cars and you want to make a unit train of these things and you don't want to have any duplicate numbers, well, you can number them yourself. So the intermediate car has matching ends, right? Mentioned that just a second ago. And this little handle here is on one side of all of the cars. And I think the theory here is that when you set a train up like this, you'd want to have all the brake ends facing one direction and all the A ends facing the other direction. So keep in mind to pay attention to what's what. Because these have those little hose fittings, I would suggest that you set the train up on the layout, put all the hoses on, and then never take it apart unless you have to move it for some reason. That would probably be the best way to use these things or the best approach to making it work with these. I've scrutinized the paint and markings on these cars and it's really good. The white paint covers very thinly and evenly so as not to obscure any details. And then the markings are especially crisp, and I'm talking about everything there. You can tell down here that this is all legible with magnification. The placard holder is a separately applied part. The placard is also legible. Don't even really need too much magnification to read that. It's hard to tell from this angle, but if I tip it up just a little bit, you can tell there's all kinds of detail on the bottom of this model that would be visible when it's rolling down the track. We're going to look at the bottom more closely in a minute, but I wanted to point out how visible that is as you're looking at it on the side view. Also, from this side, you can see it has a bunch of separately applied brake detail down in here on the end, which you'll see a little better in just a second here. And then all of this stuff up here appears to be all photo etched metal, including the grabs. And of course, we'll look at the walkway or platform around the hatch there in a minute when we look at the top detail. But this thing's loaded with detail, and you want to be careful when you take it out of the box. These models also have rotating bearing end caps. Here's a look at the brake end detail, and you'll notice it has everything. It has an uncoupling lever. It has all kinds of separately applied, very thin wire grabs. The grab that goes across the entire car also appears to be a wire grab, very thinly rendered. The brake detail is amazing. Separately applied brake wheel and chain detail. There's little grabs on both sides of this end of the car. The ladder. I mean, just everything about this car is just screaming detail. And from this angle of the brake end, you can see there's even more detail. There's a triple valve with a bunch of little piping going in and out of it. And there's also a train line air hose right here. Here's a look at the other side of the car, and you can see some of that brake rigging that's on the bottom is even more visible looking at it from this side. The A end has a lot of that same detail I was talking about on the B end, including things like these little fine grabs, and of course the ladder detail, uncoupling lever, air hose, it's all there. Here's a look at the top detail of this model. Everything you see is separately applied, including these end parts. Of course, the attachment or fitting for the hoses here, also separately applied. This is a vent, separately applied. This little dome, separately applied. The hatch detail, separately applied, and it looks really good. This is photo etched. All the walkways up here are photo etched. And the handrails, I can't tell for certain, but they feel like they're wire. If they're not wire, they're a very durable plastic. On this side, we have a hose holder. All of these details on this end also are separately applied. And then we have the other hose fitting here with the valve as well. Lots of detail to look at. Pretty amazing when you think about it. And finally, here's a look at the bottom detail. And I don't feel like I really need to point it out, but just look at all this brake detail all along the entire bottom of the car. You can see there's a curve in it here that puts this stuff closer to this side. That's what I was pointing out when I said you could see more of the detail from the bottom on that one side just a minute ago. And this would be a good time to point out, I think, that it has metal wheels, and of course, these are body-mounted McHenry couplers. There's an awful lot of detail on this car. This model weighs 5.1 ounces. The NMRA's recommended weight for a car of this length in HO scale is right around 5 ounces. It seems pretty obvious to me that Athearn did a good job researching when they were developing these models. I really like the distinctly separate end cars that are different from each other, as well as being different from the intermediate cars. That's a level of realism that I think will appeal to a lot of modelers. And something else that I keep thinking is how cool it would look to have a unit train of these things being pulled around a big layout. And I'm talking about a unit train with like 80 of them. That would be one of the coolest models on any layout, I think. Anyway, great job, Athearn. I'm really impressed with this model. I'll see you all next time.